Hey, Sound Up fans, it's Mark Goodman here. To stay connected to everything happening in the world of music, make sure to subscribe to this podcast, Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light. Join the conversations, experience live events, and be a part of the podcast. To get in on the action, check out our website at sounduppod.com. Like and follow us on social media at SoundUpPod and email us at connect@sounduppod.com.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
This week on Sound Up, authors Tom Beaujour and Richard Bienstock join us to discuss their new book, Lollapalooza, the uncensored story of alternative rock's wildest festival.
Plus, Timothee Chalamet wins a SAG Award, making the run-up to the Oscars even more interesting. Mariah Carey announces some live shows. A new album coming from Carlos Santana. Kendrick Lamar's halftime show is the most watched in Super Bowl history. And we say goodbye to Roberta Flack. And I've got some concert reviews, including Jason Isbell and Billy Gibbons. It was a busy week for me. We've got live responses and comments on our weekly Throwback Thursday question, and as always, our new music picks of the week.
I can't believe the concert review you've got for us, Alan. I'm kind of excited. Billy Gibbons, I had no idea. I mean, I knew he was touring, but damn.
Yeah, a couple of fun shows this past week. Three things I want to hit real quick. Billy Gibbons played City Winery last week, played 2 nights at City Winery with his BFG's trio. So it's Whipper Layton from Double Trouble playing drums, who is a monster. And then a guy who's a sort of Texas legend, organ player, bass player. And seeing Billy Gibbons just, in a little room like City Winery, he doesn't have to do these shows. Like, that was the overwhelming feeling, is this is just because he wants to play. And it's very funny to see him in a trio with, he could just, if he had Frank Beard on the drums, he'd just call it ZZ Top, play the exact same show, and headline an arena. But instead, he's got a different drummer. He's playing City Winery, and it's super fun. Mostly a lot of ZZ Top songs, some organ trio stuff, which was really cool. I talked to him after for a little bit, and he said there was a certain moment when B.B. King was playing with just an organ trio, with just organ and drums, and that's what he wanted to do with some of this show. Some other blues. Of course, he had a crazy guitar with a screen set in the body that was showing waves, like ocean waves going on there. And again, talked to him after, and he's like, yeah, I figured we could drop an iPad into the body of the guitar and then put whatever we want on the screen behind what I'm playing. So we've started out doing these waves, but then he was showing he wanted to do a scene from a Western. He wanted to put that on the guitar for some show, like just crazy, ridiculous, but so much fun to hear him play. Eternally underrated as a guitar player, if we can say that. The top stuff sounded great. He left a bunch of hits on the table, but he played some of the big ones. And again, just a really good time, and obviously him having a really good time. Quickly, on Friday, I actually can't sort of review this because it was the first night of previews, but the Buena Vista Social Club musical is about to open on Broadway, and the previews just started over the weekend. And for those of you who were fans of that project, and many of us were, the show's really fun. Again, I won't do a real review, but I will just say the musicians and the singers and the dancers are just top notch, man. These are heavyweight musicians.
How does the cast of this Broadway show relate to what the original project was? Are there people from the original Buena Vista Social Club? What was that, 20 years ago?
It's 25 years ago. I think 26 years ago or something now. Not many of them are still alive. So these are, and this ran off Broadway last year, so it's not a total reveal, but it's sort of
like a next gen.
The framing is the older musicians coming together to make the Buena Vista record, but them looking back on when they first met, playing at the original Buena Vista Social Club in, pre-revolution Cuba,
right?
What their stories are, some of which is true and some of which is fictionalized. But even if you're just going for the music and don't give a damn about the show, it's pretty damn fun. So it'll be interesting to see, is Broadway audience, the songs are all in Spanish. The dialogue is in English. The songs aren't sort of conventional musical, like songs that move the story. They're set piece songs in the studio or wherever. How's that going to work for what the cost of a Broadway ticket, or will people be into that? But if you're curious, man, it is really fun.
And is there a structure of there's not a storyline, I'm guessing.
There's a storyline, sure, of these the older musicians who end up coming back together for the session and what their lives were that brought them there. And, so there's it's framed as
like
a story.
Sort of based in reality, though. That's
Yeah.
Interesting.
Not to be held as a documentary, though there is that fantastic documentary.
Yes.
Mostly from the Carnegie Hall show,
Yeah.
which I was blessed to attend, of the Buena Vista Social Club. So anyway, that was Friday. And then Saturday, I went to see Jason Isbell, the second of 2 nights at the Beacon, playing solo, not with the 400 unit. You miss the band because it's such a great band, but those songs are so good that just to hear him do it, sitting on a chair, one acoustic guitar, pin drop silent, and listening to, how strong that writing is, was really powerful.
You must have been the only industry person in the room if it was silent in there, because the industry does not shut the hell up.
I was there on Saturday, so if there were more industry, they were probably there on Friday for the opening. But people were totally dialed in for this show, and just and it's wild to hear him say, this is a song from 20 years ago. Like, that he's been around that long, but you kind of don't think, oh, right, he's been making these records for, more than 20 years and really built up a body of work. So it was great. It was different to see him this way, but it was very powerful to see him this way. I know we have Isbell fans who are listeners, and it does not disappoint. So I got some good stuff in last week.
Excellent job. Listen, just going forward, when you hear that Billy F is coming to town, just shoot me an email.
I'll let you know.
I talk about that on the radio all the time. I play ZZ all the time, and I'm like, Billy's coming out.
He should be calling you, Mark. He should be telling you when he's coming. Mark, I'm coming to town.
Anyhow, that's great. That's very, very, very exciting.
There's a week in the life, and probably explains the cold that you can hear that I'm fighting in my throat right now. But there you go. Price we pay.
All right. We'll jump to some music news, and there's plenty. As we said at the top, Timothee Chalamet winning the SAG Award for his portrayal of Bob Dylan. Not bad at all. And as Alan also said, that makes things a little more exciting heading into the Oscars coming up this weekend.
Everybody reads the tea leaves differently for which awards mean which things, but I feel like everybody had kind of moved to, okay, Adrian Brody's going to win, Chalamet is going to be second place. Like that's sort of where it seems like everything's settled. And then this morning you wake up to, well, maybe not so fast. Maybe the momentum. It's
sort of a back and forth, because one of the things that said, there is no SAG Award winner. That's all that they had that went on and won the same award in the Oscars.
Right.
And he's the youngest, Timothee Chalamet, the youngest guy to win a SAG Award. And Adrian Brody was the youngest guy to win an Oscar at the time. Right. So Timothy could come in and steal that record, steal that moment.
Very interesting. Whatever any of this means, or whatever any of it's worth, just the moment, how the momentum shifts play out is always very interesting. But look, I keep seeing the numbers of Complete Unknown keeps like moving up the lists of highest grossing biopics. It's not going to take Bohemian Rhapsody out at the top, but definitely for a movie that a lot of us were like, yeah, I don't know. Especially us Dylan fans were really skeptical.
Yes.
A clear and ongoing victory for this project.
I hope he takes Bob as his date to the Oscars. It'd be great.
Took his mom last night.
He's busy that night.
Yeah.
He's busy. He's got something else to do.
Meantime, Mariah Carey announces some big tour dates. And I'll pause right now just to apologize to say, last week when we were talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees, somehow Mariah got cut off our list.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt bad the whole week because we were talking about how many women were nominated and knowing that it was still a low number, but it wasn't quite as low a number as what we read, because also Mariah got nominated for the second time. So just to go back a week and say, if you listen and we're like, hey, what about that? Yeah, that's on us. We messed that up. But in the meantime, on the heels of that, Mariah booked a big show in the UK at the Royal Sandringham Estate in Norfolk whatever this means. 20,000 capacity venue, support from Eternal and from Nile Rodgers and Chic. Tickets will be available during a pre-sale on March 5th, general on sale on March 7th. The live shows are kind of rare from Mariah.
And she's only announced, what, 3?
She, as far as I know, there's 2. She announced that one, and then she announced another date in the UK at the Pride in the Park event at the Brighton Pride Festival on August 2nd and 3rd, so that same week. She was supposed to play Pride Fest in 2020, which was canceled, obviously, due to the pandemic lockdown. She did post in gratitude for her Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nomination. It's always an incredible honor to be recognized alongside so many legendary artists I admire. Thank you to the Rock Hall and to my amazing fans. You're the heart of everything I do. This means so much.
She's got that one in September, though. The Pride Festival is August. August 2nd and 3rd. And she has that September date at the Town 2025 with Mariah Carey, Jessie J, Yvette this is the one in South America.
Got it. So there's these two, and there's the 2 August dates in Europe, in the UK, and then a South American date. It's funny, you don't think of sort of the live Mariah performer, and one of the moments in Questlove's SNL music history, when he in that crazy mashup that started the show.
Yeah.
We talked so much about. One of the climactic moments right at the end was the very young Mariah, I think for Vision of Love on SNL, doing one of her crazy vocal runs, which I totally forgot that she ever was an SNL guest. And she's in her jean jacket and she's got the fully teased hair and everything. She's a kid, but doing one of those insane melismatic runs that we haven't seen a lot live or live on TV from her in a while. So see what happens. Could be a big year for Mariah if she gets some more shows in.
I was going to say, I mean, that's at 20,000 seats. That's not that big, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, UK is a different, not London.
Right.
It's a different sort of a scale of a thing, but she's not playing a football stadium.
Right. So I have to imagine there's going to be more dates. She's not going to, she's not going to get this all together for 3 dates. I can't imagine. No. So we also heard from Carlos Santana. Happy that he is back. He is feeling much, much better. As you know, last year he had to cancel a bunch of shows, but Santana is going to release an album containing new and previously released tracks called Sentient. And the album follows the 2021 release of Carlos Santana and his band's 26th album, Blessings and Miracles. So he has the March 28th release, including collabs with Smokey Robinson.
Yeah, so the Smokey Robinson song came out on Friday.
Yeah.
Which I guess is an alternate take of a song they had done for a Smokey album, I think in 2009, if I'm remembering the date right. So it's previously unheard, though we've heard them do this song before.
Yeah.
But,
suffice it to say, there'll be a bit more guitar in this version.
Yeah, I'd have to go back to listen. There's a lot of guitar in this version. They sound great. I listened to it, I was like, wow, I don't know what this is, but, it sounds really good.
Yeah.
Smokey, who just turned 85 last week, by the way.
God bless that man. Phew, it's great. So Carlos says, I just went into the studio. I did my own thing. I said, let's just roll it. And he did another take with Smokey, sort of guiding him. Smokey loved them both, so he wound up combining the two. What's on Sentient is the first version, just to be clear.
Right. But other collab, I know there's a thing with Miles Davis on here.
Yeah. Going back a ways.
All right. So can I just say the collapse of, American civilization does really weird things to your sense of time, doesn't it? I mean, that Super Bowl was this month.
Right. I know
the Grammys were this month. Like, that seems like it was forever ago.
Right.
It was only anyway. So getting the final ratings, Kendrick's Super Bowl halftime show had 133.5 million viewers, a larger audience than the Super Bowl itself, and the biggest numbers ever for a halftime show.
I don't ever remember there being the halftime show more watched than the game.
Yeah, I don't know how they do this. The game had an average of 126 million viewers. Yeah. Now, I imagine a lot of viewers dropped off in the second half because it was such a boring blowout that, I don't know what the how you come up with those numbers. Just for the comparison, though, Usher headlining last year broke the previous record. He had 123 million viewers. So 10 million more viewers at a time where people are not watching TV. The Super Bowl really has become like the absolute biggest thing in our culture by a long shot. But at the very least, I hope it just shuts up the people who are like, nobody knows these songs. Nobody's ever heard of Kendrick Lamar. Why would they book this guy for the halftime show?
I don't understand what he's saying.
That would be why more people watched than ever before, and more people watched him than watched the game.
Sure, Drake is pleased with these numbers.
Absolutely.
Drake, who does have a #1 album this week, by the way, just to say that game's not fully over.
So he's from the sidelines, he's razzing Kendrick. But that, you're more knowledgeable about this genre than I am, Alan. What happened? I mean, he's not a pedophile, is he?
We're not going to go back and relitigate the
You know what I mean,
we're not going back into that. I think we're done. People can't get, and as we see, can't get enough. So look, Kendrick left it off the album.
Right.
He didn't leave it on the show. He left it off the new album. It was just a single. But those numbers are astounding. So
agreed.
Just process that for a minute.
All right.
Because I do see all these like, next year they got to get, I'm like, you know what? If they can get the biggest star to get the biggest ratings, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. Whoever that may be next year.
So one final thing before we break, which is sad news that we just got,
yes,
which is the passing of the great Roberta Flack at age 88.
Man, came to stardom in the early 70s. Grammy-winning hits, First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, legendary. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing that or Killing Me Softly. Holy
Both
cow.
of which won back-to-back Grammy wins for Record of the Year. Nobody did that until U2 did it many decades later. Both of those songs, Record of the Year at the Grammys.
Says the classically trained singer-pianist only belatedly found fame when Clint Eastwood employed her 2-year-old version of The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face in his 1971 directorial debut, Play Misty for Me. I think we all remember that one. Woof. Especially those of us in radio.
Look, I will just say, because I've talked about this mostly about Beatles records, that records that were really important to me when my mom, when my dad remarried when I was 7 and my mom moved out to join us in Cincinnati and brought her records. And that Roberta Flack record was one of the records that she brought at that time. So this was a record as a kid I remember really vividly and importantly, as, not just you heard them in the world, but like they were in my house was, that was a big deal. So yeah, they gave no cause of death. My understanding was that she had been battling ALS in recent years. I thought that they had said that. My apologies, and I don't know if officially that's a cause of death or could be something else. But she had not been well in recent years. I saw her not that long ago, I think at a jazz show at Carnegie Hall, if I'm remembering this right, in the audience in a wheelchair. So she was still out as of, maybe that was a year ago or a little less, but had not been well for a while. But what a fascinating, nobody sounded like Roberta Flack. And those duets with Donny Hathaway, Where Is the Love, most at the top of that list, are just incredible, incredible records. And that sort of jazz, soul, sophisticated, cool thing that she had, there's really nobody else that sounded like that. You can put her on a list like there's some Nina Simone stuff that gets you there, and then there's some more jazz singers, but those are really special records.
She will be missed. 88 years old. Damn.
Let us take a break. We got some guests coming when we return.
Indeed. Tom Beaujour and Richard Bienstock, as promised, join us to talk about Lollapalooza, the uncensored story of alternative rock's wildest festival. That is next. All right, welcome back to Sound Up. And as promised, we have some special guests. We're going to take a loving look back at one of the wildest festivals ever. Our guests, Richard Bienstock and Tom Beaujour, authors of Lollapalooza, the uncensored story of alternative rock's wildest festival. Welcome, Tom and Richard. Good to see you guys.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Man, why was it the wildest festival? There's been some pretty freaking wild festivals. Did you hear Woodstock? That was nuts.
I think it's just the pure number of days. This is the kind of like had that madness going on for 45 days a summer, or 60 days a summer for 7 years. So
I can see that's a recipe for wildness.
Exactly.
Plus, we do call it Alternative Rock's Wildest Festival. So Woodstock is out of
Yes.
Right.
running.
Wow.
Yeah. So we qualify it.
Definitions, yes.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We won't get into semantics here.
So
All right.
what was your own, for each of you, what was your own Lollapalooza history? Were you did you make all the different runs? Some of what did you bring starting in of your own recollection?
Well, it's fine. We were just talking about this before because I was right in that Lollapalooza sweet spot. I was 15 in 1991. So I went to the first one. I went to the second one. I went to the third one. I was like their very target audience. I was growing up in the suburbs of New York City. I was in high school and angsty and wearing my flannel and getting exposed to all this stuff, but still largely getting exposed to it on, MTV and through outlets like that. And Lollapalooza was, the place to go. It was like, that was the music I was listening to. And that was the place you'd go there and you'd see like the booths making like hemp bracelets, and you'd see the dudes with the tattoos and the piercings. And like, it was all that culture like coming right at you and right in your face in a lot of ways for the first time, and like right at that moment where you're really impressionable and where that really feels like something new, and not just like a different way to look, but also a different way to think, and like a different way to really kind of view the world. And so it was something that was big for me and my friends at that time, and like we were there.
I was too old.
Yeah,
You were too old.
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
Okay.
Please. Does it that gestalt, was that from Perry Farrell? Is that where this culture, the confluence of music and culture and crafts and everything?
it's a thing that's a recurrent theme through the book, is this notion of, is the festival driving the culture, or is the culture driving the festival? And yeah, like Mark says, I mean, how much do we credit was Perry, like, he just placed the right bet at the right time? Obviously, it's something that he continued to tease out as the festivals continued. But what was that dynamic?
I think that he really, when you look at the sort of the 6-year course of the original festival, I think he really did, and sometimes to the festival's detriment, have a vision of what it should be. And I think the vision also changed, the ground underneath the festival changed so much between the first and second years that I think that created an alteration sort of in the game plan, because 1991 really, this Jane's Addiction's farewell tour with these underground bands, it's still an outsider situation. Like most of the bands, Living Colour, arguably, they had a hit record, but Rollins Band, Butthole Surfers, these are still sort of extra cultural, mass culture things. And I think it really was important for him to create something illuminating. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing his PR, but I really do think that there was a belief there. And I think that the other people involved, the booking agents, Don Muller, Mark Geiger, Mark Geiger had been Morrissey's booking agent. He was the Pixies booking agent. So these were people who knew that this stuff had some weight in the States. And so I think they really did have a clear vision of what they were trying to do. I think that it becomes more difficult to execute almost immediately because between Lollapalooza 91 and 92, Nevermind comes out. Everything changes. And so like literally the identity of these people, and this is something that alternative rockers dealt with for all of the 90s, they've gone from being outsiders to insiders. They are the driving the culture. So I think that creates more challenges to continue executing the sort of brief of, we're going to do this thing that's bringing, kids to this unknown, to these, unknown artists and stuff, because it's all on MTV. So having it be a cool thing, which I think was very important to Perry and also to the founders, becomes more and more difficult as time goes on, because inherently the music is less cool because it's popular.
Well, it's so striking going through the book from year to year that how they're wrestling with this. I mean, how dramatically different each one of them really is. That, as you said, by the second one, okay, now this culture has turned into this whole other thing. Pearl Jam starts at the bottom of the bill, and then in the course of the festival becomes the only story. Okay, now we got to swing it back so that we're sure that we're true to the roots. Now we got to swing it back because it was a little smaller, so we got to make it. I mean, each year there's this really active struggle with what is this thing, and it's funny to sort of look back on it as an entity when each one of them is kind of its own entity at its own moment in time.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it even speaks to what you were just saying about this idea of, was Lollapalooza creating the culture or just kind of tracking it? And I think that was one of the things that appealed to us about doing this book, was this idea of studying the rise and sort of plateauing, right, of alternative rock, and then the transformation of what it really becomes later in the decade, because Lollapalooza really reflects that in what it's doing. In 91, is this very alternative thing. 92, like a lot of these bands are very mainstream at that point, or becoming mainstream, but they're still, I mean, this is an alternative festival for sure. But you see, as it goes on, they're sort of mirroring the same struggles in terms of like this idea between staying alternative and being mainstream, and also being successful and profitable as like the industry is. And the industry, straddling the line about whether they're going to sign bands like Flaming Lips and Jesus Lizard to major labels, and what that means, and what, Sonic Youth, what they're getting out of that. And so it's that same sort of struggle. And I think that when you doing the book and doing it year by year, you really see that, yeah, every year comes together with its own specific challenges and its own specific kind of group of bands that they're looking at, and the type of audience they're looking at. And even though Lollapalooza is this sort of entity that represents a certain thing, like every year is very different from the year before and the year that follows. And it's usually a reflection of what came before.
I think that by 1995, too, what they try and do and sort of fail is defy the culture, because, they've had these 4 successful years and they're really concerned about selling out and this and that, which is really this uniquely 90s tension, right? Like, this is this thing, even my friends who were in bands in the 90s look back and go like, I can't believe we were so worried about that. Like, why were we so worried about selling out? But that was the core issue. But, in 1995, what we find out is that, like, basically Perry Farrell could have had Stone Temple Pilots headline. Stone Temple Pilots really wanted a headline. And you know what? That probably would have brought a lot of kids. Is it the coolest kid ever? Is it the most discerning kid who's digging through the crates and reading Maximum Rock and Roll? No, but it's the normal kid. And they decide to defy what's going on and say, like, we're going to have Sonic Youth headline. And then they end up having their worst year ever. So I think ultimately they find themselves like in opposition to what's going on, as opposed to, it's very difficult for them to try and keep up, and they don't make all the right decisions. Possibly there were no right decisions to be made.
That tension of seeing the thing become popular, and now you have to feed that, that now you got to maintain that place. We know that's a hard thing. And where all that sort of culminates is in the Metallica year, which is obviously still sort of controversial to the extent that any of this is, controversial. Is that really Lollapalooza? Talk about what got to that bill and what ended up playing out.
Well, I think what got to that bill is a little bit what Tom was talking about with 95, this shift to doing something very alternative and very indie in 95, and it not going so well. Having Sonic Youth headline, having Pavement on the main stage, Jesus Lizard, all of these bands. And so they need to pivot from that. And the pivot that they go to is Metallica, which is an unusual pivot. And I think one of the things that's interesting about when we were researching that chapter is that some people saw it as a sellout and, really just like, we need to sell tickets. And so we're going to put the biggest selling rock band right on the top of the bill. But other people involved with it saw it as a big risk It was changing the direction of Lollapalooza. And then it was also keeping that Lollapalooza spirit, alive, which was to do the unexpected. And Metallica, for however mainstream they were the unexpected thing. So, both those arguments can be made and they can both be true. But I think that it did, and it actually wound up being pretty successful because, as somebody in the book says, no matter what the reasoning is, you put Metallica at the top of a bill, like you're going to sell tickets. And that's that. But did it hurt the brand? It absolutely hurt the brand.
And it hurt the festival, I think, logistically. It created probably a precedent. Luckily, they didn't last long enough for it to become a precedent. But Metallica was so big that it was the tail wagging the dog. Like Metallica comes in and tells Lollapalooza, we can't play any of the sheds that you play. We don't want to play in sheds. We don't want to play any major markets because we're doing a fall tour, And so Lollapalooza ends up being out in fields that year, which is incredibly more difficult to pull off. They're bringing in water. They have a plumber. They're bringing in, and so even though there was more kids coming, they're not actually making that much more money, but it's also creating, I think, backstage, this sort of asymmetry that every time it happens on that tour is not good. You actually see it a little bit in 1995 because Courtney Love is on the tour, Hole is on the tour, and she's got security and babysitters and limos. And I think, musicians are very used to hierarchy. Like you're going on first, you get this much stage. But like the vibe backstage when there's somebody with that much more gravitational pull, I think creates real problems for morale. And like Metallica, by all accounts, had basically had their own village back there. So it was really it was a Metallica tour with other bands. It really did knock things off their axis.
Things weren't balanced out at all by the side stage, because that was really where, they went out the window. Even Metallica year, they went out the window and with the bands on that side stage. Talk about alternative.
It created some balance and like at least ideologically, like it created like, look, we're still showcasing the young bands, underground bands. I think ultimately what really is a lot of the bands who are on the side stage have a lot of a better time. Like 96, you've got Melvins, but you've also got Sponge, or as radio rock as it gets. But I think that there was, and a lot of people in the book say it, like there was a lot to be said for being on that side stage in a good slot versus being on the main stage in like an opener and playing for 6 people. So I think it did balance it out. And I think it was very important. And John Rubely, who's the guy who booked side stage like 93, 94, 95, was very committed to making it exceptional. So I think it did create a balance, but ultimately I think it's always about the headliner.
This is an oral history. You did claims more than 200 interviews for the book. What was the pitch? Was it tough to sell Perry? Because if you don't have some involvement from him, I assume you walk away. What was that? Was there a negotiation around that, or did he instantly get why this should be chronicled like this? What was that piece of it?
It's always a dance, but Perry, it's funny because Perry was kind of there in some ways from the beginning, only because right before we started the book, I had actually done a story on the 30th. It was the 30th anniversary of the first Lollapalooza at that time. And I did a story for Variety that Perry was involved in. And it was Perry and Ice-T that did the interview. And so we had a lot of material from Perry right off the bat. And then he came back in later on. Actually, everybody in Jane's came on board and wound up doing interviews for the book. But we did, of course, want to have that buy-in from Perry. And Perry was aware, I think, the whole time that we were doing this book. And eventually he did come to the table and sit for an interview, and I think having him come in a little bit later in the story was actually very beneficial too, because we had a lot of background. We had a lot of other stories that we could talk to him about and that we could reference. Because Perry's more, he's not going to get into like the little granular details about things. He's more the big idea dude. As in the book, he's the guy that wants to create communal burritos. That's where his head is. So it was good to have these sorts of things that we really wanted to hone in on, because we already knew a lot of pieces of the story, and then be able to have him comment on that. But he was certainly aware of the project, and he did sit for interviews for the project as well.
So I gotta ask. Your previous project that you guys did was also an oral history. Nothing But a Good Time was the hair metal story. This is the Lollapalooza story. These are mortal enemies. How different? How do a compare and contrast on the experience of doing hundreds of interviews about hair metal and hundreds of interviews about Lollapalooza?
I will first say that to my, and this is, as in the same way that I was too actually grumpy and old to go to Lollapalooza because I was already 20 when the first one came out, and I grew up in New York City, and I was like, I'm not going to go stand in a field to see bands I've already seen, but I was a kid, and this is not apocryphal, this is true. I had a cassette. One of my cassettes was Poison, Open Up and Say Ah on one side, and Husker Du, Flip Your Wig on the other. So I actually was a kid who grew up like going to see Def Leppard and the Replacements. And I knew that within me, though, to your point, there were two mortal enemies fighting each other. And I would say the one real difference between these books in my perception of doing it, and this in Rich may feel differently, is that when we were doing the book on hair metal, once people realized that we were serious about it and that we knew our stuff and that we weren't out to get them, because most interviews with bands like that are kind of these gotcha interviews where you're trying to demonstrate like how misogynist or this, that, that. Once people knew that we were really doing this thing, they were pretty open and enthusiastic because they've been treated like crap by the press for so long. But then when you're talking to like Lee Ronaldo, he has been treated well and his story told and everything sort of, they seem less excited that this thing should be happening. Maybe Lee Ronaldo is a bad example because he was actually pretty helpful, but like it's a different psychographic, this alternative
Sonic Youth have gotten their due.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Everybody, most of the people we spoke to have gotten their due already. And it is a very, I found that to be a very different dynamic, but it's also the same. It's been the same for my entire career as a journalist, that, you know, interviewing metal guys is generally much more pleasant.
What?
Like for me, like, you know, in the guitar realm,
you're speaking their language, you know,
you're speaking their language.
Yeah.
I found it to be a little bit more difficult to get people to open up to
the alternative guys.
The alternative guys,
yeah.
You know, eventually, though, oddly, this book is much more unhinged and depraved than the hair metal book, like by like a factor of, I'm going to say 6 or 7.
It is
so
true.
We got there, but there was definitely less. There was more work getting the interviews, more, you know, it definitely helped that we had already had a New York Times bestseller. I wouldn't have wanted to try and do this one first.
Before we have these 3 questions that we like to ask all of our guests, but
lightning round.
We call it a lightning round. I just want best year for Lollapalooza.
I think the best year of Lollapalooza was 94, which was Smashing Pumpkins and Beastie Boys, The Breeders, L7, Nick Cave, and a very, very Green Day, you know, and I think that was sort of
called Quest, Breeders. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the year to me, like that the magic trick happens again, you know, like where they sort of hit it right down, like they hit it where it's like, you know, Beastie Boys, popular, but totally cool. Kim Deal, the coolest person on the planet, you know,
Smashing Pumpkins, super popular, not necessarily totally cool.
Not necessarily totally cool, but, you know, but like super popular. So, you know, and, you know, then there was the Boredoms on the opening, also on the main stage for part of it. Interestingly, Perry Farrell did not want Green Day on that tour at all. He thought that they were like a boy band, that they were a confection of Warner Brothers Records, you know, and it sort of like took a lot of explaining to him, like, look, no, they've actually been playing in San Francisco. They've got these 2 indie records. Ultimately, he was able to be convinced that they could do half the tour if the Boredoms did the other half. You know, but there's this moment in the beginning when Green Day goes on stage, I think for their first show on the tour, and they go, this song is dedicated to Perry Farrell. It's called Chump, so literally, so there was some static there, but to me, and that was like, that year was my beat. Like that was one of the ones. It just seemed like bands were also having like a lot of fun. Oddly, backstage, it's also one of the darker years. So it was fun to tell, there's an astounding amount of hard drugs involved in this whole story. And I think that people, and you see it in that year with Kelly Deal, which is well documented. So I can say it like,
is it a sort of a post Nirvana kind of a situation that there was the he had just died the year before, I guess.
Well, that was, look, 94, the thing is, which I should have mentioned, that was what was supposed to be. It was very close. Nirvana was supposed to headline Lollapalooza 94 to the point where people, like, I know, because I know the person who was doing it, the stage set was being designed for Lollapalooza. Like the deal was pretty much done. I think it was just like this. That was what was happening in that time. People were just doing like heroin was,
Right.
and I think that Lollapalooza was a terrible way to try and stay clean. It's really a psychological experiment to go sit in a field in a bus for like, that one was really long too. That Lollapalooza 94 was the biggest one. I want to say it was like 12 weeks, 10 weeks. So but I think that's the year where the mix is the best.
Let us jump into these questions and see what you guys come up with, our big 3 monthly questions. All right, first question. What was the first album you purchased?
Kansas Point of No Return.
Wow, you said
that's
that
a
out
real
loud.
answer.
Okay.
Yep.
I was 7.
That's a real answer right there. Next question. What is the last live show you attended?
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Was it the Yola Tango Christmas show? I think it was.
You've been staying home and working hard.
I was just going
I've
to
been
say.
staying home and working hard. It might have been.
That's the Hanukkah show, my friend, by the way.
Yes. Oh, and then, I went to it was Bowery Electric. It was a tribute. It was a tribute to the Fuzztones after the airing of their new documentary, the garage rock band, the Fuzztones.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Third question for Tom Beaujour is, which song do you wish you wrote?
The Kids Are All Right by The Who.
What a great answer.
Yeah, simple.
A perfect song.
It's a perfect song. I have this thing I talk about with, I sometimes record bands. I call it the double helix, which is, bear with me, it's when the words of the song and the melody intersect in such a perfect way that it like makes your heart want to explode. And for me, when he sings, and I know sometimes I can go out of my mind, that melody right there is like, it's as good as it gets, period. Like it makes, right now I'm getting flustered. So yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Tom, you want to plug Axe Lords before we're out of here?
Yeah. So I do a podcast with the comedian Dave Hill and a guitar builder named Cindy Hoolidge, and called Axe Lords, that we try and make as funny and guitar nerdy as possible at once. That's a tough double helix right there. But we just finished season 1. We had Mary Timony and Kerry King from Slayer and Steve Vai. We try and go the whole Kid Congo from the Cramps. And so we try and sort of swing wildly from lane to lane, and it's super fun.
Lollapalooza, the uncensored story of alternative rock's wildest festival by Richard Bienstock, Tom Beaujour. These guys are our guests today. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having us.
Look for the book out March 25th, wherever you get those books, those things you hold in your hand and read.
Rack those pre-orders up. That's what it's all about.
It's also available as the audio books.
Tom and Richard, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Sound Up. As always, we want to hear from you, our Sound Up Pod Squad.
Each and every week, we present a question, thought, musing, something we'd like you to comment on as part of our Throwback Thursday segment. And this week's question was, did you ever make someone a mixtape?
What about you guys? Have you, either of you?
Yeah, I mean, I made them. Sure.
Yeah.
There are mixtapes that I made and that I circulated. I don't know if there was anybody that like I made a
That
mixtape
specifically
for them.
for.
Maybe so, but more I remember like a friend and I put together a particularly good all Motown mixtape that like everybody wanted. So I remember running that off, for several years for friends in high school and then friends in college because everybody was like, yeah, it's got all the good stuff on it. So I remember that.
I'm just imagining a high school aged Alan Light, just like, I want his mixtape. He's got the number one mixtape in the school.
Listen.
That's very cool. Very cool. Mixtapes were, they were a bit before my time in terms of giving them to your girlfriend and stuff. For me, it was
after, not before you were before their time.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
That's what I mean. It was after me. But it was all about the songs.
Right.
You had a song for a girl, not a whole mixtape. It was a lot easier. You just find one that spoke your mind and you were done.
Said what you needed to say.
Having to put together a 90-minute tape that proved your love.
It's
Okay.
a commitment. Listen, all credit at this point. We have to give all credit to our friend Rob Sheffield, whose book is called "Love Is a Mixtape," who used mixtapes as metaphor for relationships for a fantastic book-length project. So that's the king of this medium.
So glad that you mentioned Rob's book. That is awesome. All right. As far as our pod squatters, Danielle Sloan Broad.
Danielle.
I made a mixtape for a friend in high school. It had lots of my favorite heartache songs. I can remember Broken Wings by Mr. Mister and Kaylee by Marillion. Wow. But I can't remember what else.
That raises many questions. A mixtape of heartache songs for a friend.
Yeah.
Could mean a lot of different. How you triangulate that?
Yeah. I'm making this tape for a friend.
I don't need to know. Friend you're commiserating with. Friend you're. Listen, all of this is, Mickey sent in, I was a mixtape master. Made them for myself, my friends, my siblings, mostly to capture songs of a group of us or of an era. Loved creating them, did art for them, titled them.
Jeez.
Easy listening for the Chemically Imbalanced was one, with 9 Inch Nails, Ministry, Naked City, Helmet, Booyah Tribe, and Tiffany, among others. Maybe the only time Booyah Tribe and Tiffany came up back to back in our many days. Or God Help Them, We're All Going to Be Doctors was the name of another one that comes to mind, and I still have them. Only ever made them for one girl who is now my wife, so it worked. She made me one too, called The Spewings of a Hopeless Romantic.
Oh,
now, if that doesn't inspire you, if that doesn't make you feel good.
Mandy Balova.
Mandy, we love
Mandy. I made mixtapes for my high school friends when we were all going off to college with songs including their locations, moving away themes, and friendship songs. That's kind of cool. A cool
doing
memento.
a sort of high concept kind of a theme. This is good. All
Not
right.
bad. All right.
As always, watch our socials every Throwback Thursday for whatever question we throw at you. And we're happy to then read them back to the world.
Always love getting your responses on those. We appreciate it. All right, we should wrap things up here. New music picks of the week. Alan's going to start it off.
I got two.
Yeah.
One is a new song from Fontaines DC, a band I think we have talked about a little bit over time.
Yeah.
Their album Romance was a big favorite last year. Topped a lot of polls, a lot of 5-star reviews, especially in the UK, and definitely sort of expanded their sound a little bit from a more kind of straight ahead punk thing to a little more open, expansive, a little more melodic. And they put out a new single called It's Amazing to Be Young, which is also sort of going in a different direction, more of that direction, more sort of a new wavy kind of a song than a more of a punk song. And what is interesting is that title, It's Amazing to Be Young, very specific inspiration. It was written, Connor Deegan III says, that it was written in the presence of a newborn child.
Huh.
Carlos, our guitar player's new baby. It sounded more like a lullaby or a music box then, but with that same lyric, It's Amazing to Be Young. The feeling of hope a child can give is profound and moving, especially for young men like us. That sense of wanting to create a world for them to grow up in happily. It's a feeling that fights against the cynicism that can often overtake us in the modern world. So we wanted to declare which side we were on. It really is amazing to be young. We are still free and want to make that feeling spread. We want to protect it for the others around us, and maybe in doing that can also help protect it for itself. Long quote, but I wanted to read that quote. Really sort of charming song. I have not seen them live. They're supposed to be a great, great band live. They're heading out for dates overseas first, but then coming to the States starting in April. And I really want to try and see them. They're here in May, so I want to try and get to that. But Fontaines DC, it's amazing to be young. Give it a shot. And my other is from a young woman named Avery Anna, who gets classified as a country singer. She was just on the Opry 25 Rising Stars of 2025 or whatever, but I think is really much more sort of a singer-songwriter. And this new song, which is called Mr. Predictable, this to me almost sounds like an Olivia Rodrigo song. Her delivery, and it kind of has that driver's license thing and then opens up into some guitars. And she's got some drawl, so I guess you can still call it a country song. But if you just heard this, I don't think you would go say this is a song for country radio. And I think she's really good. She put out an album last year. She's got some more stuff coming, and I think is a really strong writer, doing that sort of alienated young woman finding her way voice that's kind of an indie rock voice, but in a country setting. So Avery Anna, the song is Mr. Predictable, and that's my other pick.
Got to check them both out. I haven't heard the new Fontaines DC either. And Avery Anna, I never even heard of.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to checking those out.
She had a song that was a hit that was a duet recently. I think Sam Butler is the guy's name that got some radio attention and all of that, but worth looking at on her own.
All right. I just got one today. It's a new, relatively new duo, at least as far as most of our ears are concerned. The duo is called Franc Moody, and that's F-R-A-N-C, Franc Moody. Space Between Us is the new EP that is just out, and the title track is the song that I picked. These guys they swing. I like to characterize it that way.
Okay.
They're tight. They have these cool rhythms that they come up with, and the songs move interestingly through different sort of phases. They are a duo from London, and it is just Ned Frank, F-R-A-N-C, and John Moody. Their first EP was Dance Moves. That came out in 2018, so they've been around a bit. They put out an album and an EP or two since. But this is the first new music since September of 2022. That last LP was called Into the Ether. So new music, 4 new songs from Franc Moody, Space Between Us. And they swing. That's the best way to put it. I love the grooves that they come up with. So that's mine.
Roger, I know you have no songs, but you have a statement.
I was so disappointed this week because I was looking for something. I was in a rock mood and I couldn't find a rock song. It's either very dreamy pop stuff, which I do love, or it was death metal. There was like no in between. So I am putting the bat signal out to rock bands to please come back and release some music. But I will say one thing I did find that I'm really hopeful for. Last week we had Paul Stanley on, and Paul's son, Evan, is a singer, guitarist, musician. Matter of fact, his band Amber Wild opened for Kiss on the last tour. He and Gene Simmons' son, Nick Simmons, have been posting stuff on Instagram, including them doing a Simon & Garfunkel acoustic cover. And they just put up another post with an original song, and their harmonies are fantastic and they sound great together. So hopefully this Nick Simmons, Evan Stanley thing is going to turn into something. So watch that space.
All right.
Evan Stanley was a student of my friend Mike Arico's at NYU at Clive Davis School. Always funny to hear. But Roger, we were talking before, and I like that you said it feels like all of a sudden at the same time everybody discovered the Sundays and Mazzy Star.
Oh my God, it's so true. Every female artist I'm listening to or band has that vibe, and they're all like, "Oh, they sound like Billie Eilish." They sound like I'm like, no, they sound like Mazzy Star. They sound like the Sundays, But listen, I love that stuff, so keep it coming. But I could use some rock and roll right now.
Here.
Listen to that Fontaines DC song.
Okay,
for sure. You can listen to all of our picks. Check out the Sound Up soundtrack playlist on Spotify.
And make sure, give us a 5-star review, like our Facebook page, and make sure to check us out on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, and TikTok. And you can always email us thoughts, questions, responses, reactions, whatever you want from us at connect@sounduppod.com.
All right, that wraps it up. This edition of Sound Up is done. Check us out on socials for exclusive content and more, all at Sound Up Pod. We thank you, and we will catch you next week.
Sound Up is hosted by Mark Goodman and Alan Light, produced by Roger That Media, distributed by Revolver Podcasts. Theme music by Smile from Tokyo. For more information, go to sounduppod.com. Roger that.